He wasn't on the guest list, but Prince Harry was caught inside Kate and William's private room, with her jewelry in hand. Trooping the Colour 2025 was meant to mark the royal family's return to unity, but behind palace walls, a shocking scandal unfolded. Sources say Harry slipped past security, entered the Wales family suite uninvited, and was discovered by William holding Princess Kate's most sentimental necklace, one that belonged to Diana. Why did Harry do it? Was this grief, or something darker? In this video, we break down exclusive insider accounts, security footage leaks, and the tense confrontation that left the palace and the monarchy shaken to its core. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. It began like any other prestigious royal event, the grand celebration of Trooping the Colour 2025. Flags flapped above Buckingham Palace, the horse guards paraded in exquisite formation, and the eyes of the world turned toward the balcony, where the most senior members of the royal family stood smiling for the cameras. But behind the grandeur, beneath the pageantry, something scandalous was brewing, something that would remain hidden until the moment security alarms pierced the stillness of a restricted hallway. Inside the Wales family's private royal suite, Prince William confronted his estranged brother, Prince Harry, clutching a piece of jewelry said to be a treasured possession of Kate Middleton, passed down from Princess Diana herself. The question the public would soon be asking wasn't just, what was Prince Harry doing there? But rather, how far has he fallen, and what was he trying to take back? What if everything you thought you knew about Prince Harry's relationship with his royal family was incomplete? What if beneath the surface of media statements and carefully worded Netflix interviews, something far more personal and desperate was taking shape? This wasn't a publicity stunt. It wasn't a tabloid misunderstanding. This was, according to palace insiders, a calculated intrusion that broke both security protocols and family trust at the highest level. This video dives deep into the full story, how Prince Harry, uninvited and unannounced, allegedly snuck into the royal quarters during one of the most televised and symbolic events of the year. What you're about to uncover includes leaked eyewitness accounts, confidential palace memos, and new revelations from insiders who say they saw it all unfold in real time. But more than just the what and the how, this story is about why. Why would Prince Harry, a man once known for his jovial nature and dedication to service, risk such disgrace on the very day his family was trying to showcase unity and stability to the British people? Why now, and why jewelry? Before we get into the full investigation, let's understand why Trooping the Colour matters so much in royal tradition, and why being absent from this event, especially in 2025, wasn't just a snub for Harry, but a declaration of exclusion. Each year, Trooping the Colour is more than a spectacle. It's the royal family's living symbol of continuity, patriotism, and family legacy. Dating back to the 17th century, it has evolved from a military ceremony into a media spectacle, culminating in the iconic balcony appearance. In the past, Harry stood proudly beside his brother and father, laughing beside Kate and Meghan. But now, in 2025, those scenes are long gone, faded memories replaced by tension, public disputes, and estrangement. This year's event was particularly significant. For the first time in decades, Kate Middleton re-emerged into public life after a lengthy recovery period, marking her return to royal duty with grace and strength. The public cheered as she appeared in a pale blue ensemble and waved to the crowd beside Prince William and their children. The moment was powerful, a symbol of resilience, unity, and hope. It was everything the royal family needed in a year filled with headlines about succession, illness, and scandal. But behind the walls of Kensington Palace, hours before that balcony wave, something far more unsettling occurred. Security footage allegedly captured a man in a cap and overcoat moving discreetly past staff quarters. Facial recognition flagged him almost immediately, but by the time palace aides reached the private wing belonging to the Prince and Princess of Wales, he was already inside. What they found next left them stunned. Reports allege that Prince Harry had entered the Wales's private suite and was found opening a drawer that contained Kate's personal jewelry, items worn by Princess Diana and passed down to Kate with great emotional significance. According to multiple palace insiders, one piece, a sapphire necklace believed to be a favorite of Diana's, was already in Harry's hand when Prince William confronted him directly. But how did it come to this? Over the last year, sources close to the palace say Prince Harry has grown increasingly erratic in his attempts to reinsert himself into royal affairs. After being excluded from King Charles's inner advisory circle and blocked from certain ceremonial events, Harry reportedly expressed his frustration through numerous back-channel messages to both his father and brother. Most were ignored. Others were returned with cold, formal responses. To those inside the palace, the message was clear: Harry was not welcome. Still, few believed he would actually show up, uninvited, unannounced, and entirely alone. As we unravel this story, we will expose never-before-seen security breakdowns that allowed this breach, testimonies from stunned palace aides who witnessed the confrontation, and a rare glimpse into Kate Middleton's emotional reaction, one that reportedly left her shaken and questioning the safety of her own home. Was this a simple moment of nostalgia gone wrong? A misguided act driven by grief and estrangement? Or was there something more deliberate, perhaps even sinister, at play? And what exactly did Harry intend to do with that necklace? This isn't just another royal feud. This is a turning point, one that threatens to redefine the public's view of Prince Harry and shake the very foundations of trust within the royal household. Throughout this video, we will also explore how this incident leaked to the press, who may have had the motive to expose it, and how public reaction has shaped the immediate fallout. You'll hear expert psychological analysis on Harry's state of mind, insight into royal protocols regarding internal theft, and even discussions on whether criminal charges, no matter how symbolic, could be filed. But the most pressing question remains: was this Harry's cry for help, or a calculated attempt to reclaim something he believes was unfairly taken from him? Stay with us as we dive into every detail, because what happened on the morning of Trooping the Colour 2025 is not just a scandal. It's a tragedy unfolding in real time. And it starts with a broken brotherhood, a forbidden room, and a necklace that may now symbolize everything the royal family has lost. The lead-up to Trooping the Colour 2025 was unlike any in recent royal memory. Behind the military precision and scheduled rehearsals, a storm had been gathering. Tension within the royal household had reached a new high, escalating beyond strained family ties to something far more complex. Distrust, paranoia, and growing fears over what Prince Harry might do next. Many within the palace believed the situation had already peaked. Following the global backlash to Prince Harry's second memoir, which had been released in late 2024 and included even more pointed criticisms of the royal family, relations between him and his senior relatives had reached absolute rock bottom. That book, filled with emotional confessions, accusations, and private anecdotes, was widely viewed as the nail in the coffin of Harry's once close relationship with Prince William and King Charles. And yet, what unfolded in the days leading up to Trooping the Colour 2025 caught even the most seasoned palace insiders off guard. In the weeks prior, whispers had circulated through both media and royal staff that Prince Harry had made renewed attempts to re-enter royal affairs. According to insiders close to the planning of the parade, Harry had made multiple discreet requests through private channels, asking whether there was any possibility of him and Meghan joining the ceremony in a limited capacity, perhaps even attending in a non-official, background role. All those requests were rejected or outright ignored. Harry's team allegedly contacted Charles's senior aide with a proposal to show unity for the public good, but there was no reply. From Kensington Palace, the message was firmer: William would not support any last-minute reappearance by Harry under any guise, not even as a bystander. Those rejections did not sit well with Harry. Multiple palace staff, speaking under condition of anonymity, reported that Harry's behavior had become increasingly erratic in the lead-up to the event. His calls, reportedly emotional and sometimes confrontational, were dismissed by royal gatekeepers. More alarming, according to one senior official, was Harry's attempt to bypass them entirely. A message allegedly sent directly to Princess Beatrice surfaced days before the parade, an emotional plea in which Harry wrote, "You're the only one who sees me. Please speak to Charles. Let me be there, even if it's just for 1 minute." The message, according to those familiar with it, was never responded to. But what stood out most was the tone. It didn't sound like someone planning to attend a celebration. It sounded like someone on the brink, hovering at the edge of desperation, determined to push past barriers, whether invited or not. The media, unaware of the deeper turmoil, continued to speculate lightly about whether Harry and Meghan would appear at all. Most assumed they wouldn't. After all, Meghan had just appeared at a controversial celebrity fundraiser in Los Angeles days earlier. But beneath those headlines, royal security was taking no chances. Protocols were updated. Extra guards were placed along the corridors of Kensington Palace. A full list of expected royal guests was cross-checked. But, perhaps out of courtesy or naivete, no one believed Harry would do something so bold as to show up completely unannounced. They were wrong. In the early hours of the parade day, security reported a strange movement near one of the side entrances to Kensington Palace, the older, less frequently used South Wing gate that had once been used by junior royals. According to official logs, the door had not been accessed in months. Yet, mysteriously, the lock showed signs of tampering. Later analysis would suggest someone had used an old staff pass to access the building, one connected to a former royal chauffeur who had been let go 2 years earlier. That pass, it turns out, had never been fully deactivated. By that point, Harry was already inside. But to understand the emotional weight of this intrusion, one must understand what this particular trooping the color meant to Prince William and Princess Kate. This wasn't just another year. This was a return. Kate, after months of battling a health condition privately, had finally made the brave decision to step back into public life. Her absence had been deeply felt by the British public. Rumors had swirled online for months, some cruel, others wildly speculative. The truth was far simpler. She had been unwell. And now, with the full support of her family, she was ready to rejoin the public duties she had once handled with effortless grace. That decision had not been easy. For weeks, Kate had been preparing for the event. Stylists, advisors, even security experts coordinated the details down to the minute. Her clothing, jewelry, and even her appearance on the balcony had been carefully timed to avoid overwhelming her. One small but emotional gesture was her decision to wear a necklace once worn by Princess Diana, her way of honoring the past while reclaiming her presence in the present. That necklace was not stored in a vault or museum. It was kept in a secured drawer in the private suite she shared with William, accessible only by a limited number of palace staff, and protected by 2 layers of internal security. Kate had chosen it with care, laying it out the night before with her dress. She reportedly said to her stylist, "It will mean something. It's a small thing, but the public will notice." Indeed, they would have noticed, but not for the reason she expected. Because by morning, the necklace was gone. Early reports suggest the necklace had been removed sometime before 9 a.m., roughly 2 hours before Kate's scheduled departure for the parade. When her stylist returned to help her dress, she immediately noticed the empty space on the velvet cloth where the jewelry had been resting. Thinking it had been moved for cleaning or final inspection, she alerted a security aide. But as minutes passed and no one could account for its movement, alarm bells were triggered. At the same time, another wing of the palace reported an unauthorized presence near the second-floor hallway. It was then that Prince William, who was just concluding a briefing with aides, was told about the missing jewelry and the strange activity near their private suite. He rushed down the corridor. And that's when it happened. According to 3 separate palace aides, Prince William walked into the room and found Prince Harry standing in the middle of the suite, holding a small blue velvet-lined case. The 2 brothers locked eyes. For a few seconds, no one spoke. What happened next would never be fully disclosed in official records, but multiple eyewitnesses have since described the confrontation as tense, emotional, and deeply personal. William allegedly demanded to know what Harry was doing. Harry, according to one aide, simply replied, "I wanted to see it. I needed to." William then reportedly said something that will likely be remembered for years to come. "You've gone too far, Harry. You're not part of this family anymore. Not like this." Security was called, but not before the moment had been seared into the memory of those who witnessed it. And with that, the storm that had been gathering for years had finally broken. In the history of royal ceremonies, few breaches of protocol have ever matched the sheer audacity of what Prince Harry allegedly did on the morning of Trooping the Colour 2025. While millions tuned in to watch the parade unfold on live television, a far more clandestine operation was taking place within the stone corridors of Kensington Palace. It was subtle, silent, and by all early accounts, intentional. The official timeline of events starts around 6:45 a.m., long before the trooping procession was set to begin. At this hour, preparations were already underway. Staff were bustling through the corridors, attending to everything from breakfast orders to wardrobe details. In the Wales household, Kate Middleton was just waking up, assisted quietly by her personal stylist and physician. The royal children were being readied for their rare public appearance, and the morning buzz inside the palace mirrored the importance of the occasion. It was one of those rare moments where everything felt meticulously under control. But outside, just beyond the view of security cameras, a dark SUV pulled up to an off-site entry point used primarily by lower-level service staff. The man who stepped out wore a long trench coat, cap pulled low, and sunglasses obscuring much of his face. He walked with his head slightly down, his pace unhurried but purposeful. According to security logs retrieved later, the man used an outdated pass connected to an ex-employee. A staff driver who had worked briefly during Queen Elizabeth II's funeral period, but left shortly after the Sussexes exited their official roles. That pass should have been deactivated. It wasn't. And whoever planned the infiltration knew that detail all too well. Once inside the outer structure, the man moved along the service corridor, an area of the palace unfamiliar to most members of the public. These passageways are not glamorous. They are utilitarian, narrow, and designed for discretion. Most of the palace's VIP guests never see these sections. That's why they were perfect for someone trying to slip past unnoticed. According to a palace source with direct knowledge of the security investigation, the figure used a staff elevator leading to the second floor, the residential wing of the Wales family. At the time, the guard stationed there were reportedly undergoing a shift change, a crucial window that may have been calculated in advance. A door at the end of the hallway leading to the Wales's private sitting room was found slightly ajar. From this point on, only conjecture and silent footage fill the gaps. Security cameras were able to identify the figure as Prince Harry within a matter of minutes. Facial recognition software flagged him as soon as he stepped into the hallway. But by then, it was already too late. He had crossed into restricted territory, just steps away from Kate's bedroom suite. A palace employee, speaking on the condition of anonymity, later recalled the moment her radio buzzed to life. "We've got an ID match." Subject: Harry. Second floor. Wales private quarters. Repeat: Wales private quarters. The initial reaction was disbelief. It couldn't be him, some said. Why would he risk showing up like this? But those who knew Harry intimately weren't as surprised. In the months leading up to the incident, there had been growing concerns about Harry's mental well-being. According to several associates and aides, he had been struggling with feelings of being erased from royal history. With the monarchy forging ahead without him, and Kate stepping back into the spotlight in a moment of national celebration, some insiders believe Harry saw this event as symbolic, a line being drawn, cementing his exclusion. And perhaps that was precisely why he chose this day, of all days, to make his move. One insider speculated it wasn't about the necklace. Not really. It was about what the necklace represented: legacy, memory, belonging. Harry felt he had none of that left. So he tried to take back a piece of it, literally. Others weren't so sympathetic. According to 3 independent sources, Harry had studied the layout of the palace prior to his visit. An aide familiar with internal security protocols confirmed that the intruder moved with precision, knowing exactly where to turn and which access points to avoid. This was not a man wandering aimlessly. He had a destination. The bedroom suite belonging to the Princess of Wales was the most personal space he could have entered. That's why it was so disturbing. In her private dressing room, the necklace Harry took wasn't lying out carelessly. It had been placed on a velvet tray, prepared with care for Kate's morning dressing routine. The necklace was more than just royal jewelry. It was a piece of Princess Diana's legacy, a sapphire and diamond heirloom passed down from mother to daughter-in-law, rarely worn except on deeply meaningful occasions. Kate had chosen it for this moment precisely because of what it represented: strength, femininity, grace, and continuity. It had been one of Diana's most beloved items and was widely recognized as a public favorite. Kate knew the symbolism would be appreciated by viewers, especially during a time when the family needed unity more than ever. So when she found it missing, panic set in. Back in the hallway, the confrontation between William and Harry unfolded swiftly. According to accounts provided by 2 palace employees stationed nearby, William entered the room alone, having insisted that his security wait outside. He wanted to handle it himself. Inside, he found his brother alone in the room, staring at the jewelry. For a few seconds, neither spoke. Harry's eyes, red-rimmed, reportedly filled with something akin to regret, though not shame. William, on the other hand, was furious. His face reportedly flushed as he took a step forward. "What are you doing in here?" he asked. Harry, allegedly startled but not aggressive, reportedly replied, "I just needed to hold it. Just once. I don't want to take it. I just wanted to feel her again." There was a long silence. William reportedly said, "You can't keep using her to justify this madness." According to the aide who overheard the commotion from the corridor, the tone escalated. William ordered Harry to leave. Harry tried to explain himself, offering incoherent justifications about feeling erased, forgotten, and cast out. He mentioned Meghan only once, saying she warned him not to come. That line reportedly made William's expression go cold. He allegedly responded, "Then why didn't you listen to her?" At that moment, William signaled the palace security. But before they could escort Harry out, the necklace was gently taken from his hands. William didn't snatch it. Instead, he took it in silence, placed it back in its case, and said, "Don't ever come back here again." Harry left the palace without further incident. He wasn't arrested. No charges were filed. In fact, the entire event was kept secret from the public for nearly 24 hours, until a leak from a palace staffer triggered a media frenzy. And yet, the scars left behind in that quiet room told a deeper story. Not of crime, but of collapse. Not of theft, but of yearning. Of a family so shattered that even sacred heirlooms had become battlegrounds for identity, memory, and belonging. What happened in those corridors wasn't just about a necklace. It was about power, pain, and a prince who no longer had a home in the place he once called his own. For a family that has endured generations of internal struggle, betrayals, and palace intrigue. Few confrontations have been as raw and unrehearsed as the one that unfolded inside the private suite of the Prince and Princess of Wales on the morning of June 15, 2025. The air in the Wales wing was still tense from the moment staff discovered the missing necklace. Every second that ticked by after Kate's stylist raised the alarm felt like a slow spiral into chaos. There was no room for protocol anymore. Only instinct, urgency, and disbelief. Prince William did not hesitate. Unlike the usual chain of command that filters information through aides and equerries, this time the news reached him directly. A whisper from his assistant, "Kate's necklace is missing. There's been movement in your quarters." For a man known for measured decisions and calm leadership, William's response was immediate. He pushed past his advisors, refused a security escort, and made his way to the second floor of the residence, where his wife, his children, and his legacy resided. Multiple palace sources described what happened next as an eruption. William was not just concerned. He was angry, visibly and deeply so. He moved quickly through the hallway, bypassing staff members who tried to intercept him. With long, purposeful strides, he made his way to the doorway that separated the formal family rooms from the private quarters. He did not knock. Inside the suite, Prince Harry was standing just a few feet from a walnut vanity table. On it sat the velvet tray where the necklace had originally been placed, now disturbingly empty. In Harry's hand, by all eyewitness accounts, was the sapphire necklace. His fingers rested lightly on the chain, but it was unmistakably in his possession. It is difficult to imagine what might have gone through both men's minds at that exact moment. Two brothers, once inseparable, now estranged, staring at each other not across a press conference, not across an ocean, but in the most intimate chamber of one brother's home, on the morning of the most public royal celebration of the year. The silence was brief. "What the hell are you doing in here?" William demanded. Harry didn't respond immediately. His gaze, according to a palace source, shifted from the necklace to his brother's face, and then to the window, almost as if he were trying to find an escape. But he wasn't running. He looked worn down, tired, haunted. "I just wanted to see it," he finally said. "To hold it. That's all." William's voice rose, not with panic, but with indignation. "You came in here, on this day, without permission, into my home, and took something that doesn't belong to you?" "I'm not taking it," Harry shot back. "It's Mum's. You know that. You know she meant it for us both." "You lost that right a long time ago," William replied coldly. "You lost that when you turned your back on everything this family stands for. What makes this moment so intense isn't just the words, but the years of silent war that led to them. Since Harry and Meghan's departure in 2020, the two brothers have only met face-to-face a handful of times, each occasion more awkward and strained than the last. At their father's coronation, they reportedly exchanged nothing more than a nod. At their grandfather's funeral, they stood on opposite sides of the chapel. There were no shared dinners, no private reconciliation talks, no late-night conversations to mend the bond. Instead, there were interviews, memoirs, documentaries, and public declarations of pain, grievance, and bitterness. And now, for the first time in years, the two were standing alone, face to face. But this time, the stakes weren't metaphorical. This time, there was something real, something tangible, being fought over. "You have no idea what it's like," Harry continued. To be out there, looking in, watching you all carry on like I never existed. And this is how you fix that, William said, motioning toward the necklace. By breaking into our home like a thief. I'm not a thief, Harry whispered. Then what are you? William asked. Those 4 words hung in the air like a sentence. Neither moved. At that moment, security arrived at the edge of the hallway. A silent signal from William told them to wait. He didn't want this to turn into a public spectacle. He didn't want the footage of guards dragging his brother out. He wanted this handled quietly, but firmly. I'm giving you one chance, William said, voice low but steady. Put it down and walk away. Harry, still holding the necklace, looked down. Slowly, he returned it to the velvet tray on the table. The case made a soft click as he closed it. I just wanted to feel something real again, he said. You don't get to decide what's real anymore, William replied. With that, the moment was over. Harry turned and walked out. Palace guards, standing at a distance, did not touch him. William stood still, watching as his brother disappeared down the corridor. He didn't follow. According to one insider, it was the first time William had seen Harry so physically close in over a year, and the last time he hoped he ever would under such circumstances. After Harry left, William stayed in the room. He opened the case again, checked the necklace, and then sat down. Not for long, just a moment. Just long enough to compose himself before returning to the duties of the day. The duties of a future king. He did not speak about the incident to anyone outside his immediate staff. Kate, upon hearing what happened, was said to be visibly shaken, asking repeatedly if the children had seen or heard anything. She was reassured that they had not. Kate's reaction, according to a palace staff member, was more emotional than expected. She wasn't just startled. She was heartbroken. To her, this wasn't just a violation of space. It was a betrayal of trust. The jewelry wasn't just valuable, it was sacred. A memory of Diana. A symbol of continuity. A personal connection that Harry had turned into a flashpoint. This isn't just royal drama, one senior aide said. This is emotional war. The decision was made quickly. No charges, no statements, no media confirmation. The palace hoped to avoid further scandal. But someone, perhaps out of conscience, perhaps out of frustration, leaked the information within hours. And from there, the story could no longer be contained. The event itself, an uninvited appearance by Prince Harry, an alleged attempted removal of Kate's treasured necklace, and a confrontation with Prince William, was shocking enough. But the aftermath inside Kensington Palace was, in many ways, even more revealing. What followed was not only a logistical scramble to contain the breach, but an emotional fallout that sent shockwaves through every wing of the royal household. What had occurred in private would soon spiral into a public reckoning, one that threatened to leave long-lasting scars on the already fragile royal fabric. Word of the incident spread internally by midday. Within hours of the confrontation, senior palace aides gathered for an emergency debrief. Normally, such internal security matters would be handled by a mix of royal protection officers, a private secretary, and legal advisors. But this time, the situation wasn't just a security breach, it was a personal betrayal, which meant that emotional reactions, not just procedural steps, drove the palace's response. Prince William reportedly returned to his office with a cold, stoic demeanor. He made no dramatic statements, but aides close to him say his silence was louder than words. He was not a man looking to avenge a crime. He was a brother finally done trying to protect a sibling who had crossed every line imaginable. Meanwhile, in the royal private apartments, Kate Middleton sat quietly with her personal security and stylists. One staffer later revealed that Kate did not speak for several minutes after learning of what had transpired. She simply stared at the case containing her necklace, now safely returned to its place. When she finally did speak, her voice trembled. She reportedly asked, "Did he say anything? About why?" The answer, as relayed by William's security, was vague. He wanted to feel her again. That sentence, according to those in the room, brought Kate to tears. It wasn't just the breach of security that hurt her. It was the emotional manipulation of Diana's memory. For Kate, Diana had become more than a mother-in-law she never met. She was a spiritual thread that tied her to her role, her husband, and the monarchy. The sapphire necklace wasn't just a valuable object. It was a symbol of everything she had inherited, not only jewelry, but duty, scrutiny, and responsibility. Kate had once embraced Harry as a younger brother. In the early years of her courtship with William, she had laughed with him, encouraged him, and at times played the role of peacemaker between the siblings. To see that same person violate the sanctity of her private space was not just sad, it was shattering. One of Kate's closest aides described the atmosphere in the room after the necklace was returned. It wasn't anger, really. It was disbelief. A feeling like something had broken that could never be repaired. By the afternoon, King Charles was briefed personally by his most senior private secretary. The message was relayed with clinical precision. Prince Harry had entered a restricted royal area without permission, had been discovered by Prince William in possession of Kate Middleton's personal jewelry, and had left the premises voluntarily. The king, still recovering from a recent health scare, reportedly said very little upon hearing the news. But those close to him said he appeared visibly shaken. This was his son, and though Charles had tried, at various moments in the past year, to bridge the divide, this incident left him in an impossible position. A private call between Charles and William occurred later that evening. According to leaks from a senior source in the royal household, the conversation was tense and final. William, for the first time in a long time, did not ask for the king's permission or guidance. He simply stated, "He crossed a line. You need to stop protecting him." Charles did not object. By morning, security protocols at Kensington Palace had already begun to change. Entry passes were revoked, logs were updated, and biometric locks were discussed as a priority. Senior members of the Royal Protection Branch were brought in to reassess vulnerabilities that had allowed an unauthorized royal to gain access to one of the most protected parts of the estate. The official line, at least internally, was to treat the matter as an internal breach without police involvement. No public statement was planned. No formal complaint filed. Not yet. But the whispers had already started to escape the palace walls. Just before noon the next day, a British tabloid published a cryptic headline, "Security breach at Kensington? Was a royal involved?" By evening, another outlet followed with an even more direct headline, "Prince Harry confronted at Kate's private suite?" Inside the trooping day turmoil. Once that story hit social media, the fire was lit. Palace officials scrambled to minimize damage, but it was too late. Anonymous quotes from insiders appeared within hours, and a blurry photo from a back corridor of Kensington, showing what appeared to be Harry in disguise, began circulating on TikTok and Twitter. Royal commentators were quick to respond, with some calling it the final unraveling of the House of Windsor's last family tie. Back inside the palace, another conversation took place. This one between William and Kate. According to palace aides, William apologized for not preventing the situation. Kate reportedly stopped him. "It's not your fault," she said. "He doesn't live in our world anymore." Those words, if accurate, say everything. Over the following 24 hours, the tone inside the palace changed from stunned confusion to a kind of resolute acceptance. There would be no reconciliation, no carefully staged appearance to calm the press. The family had officially reached the point of no return. And still, a question lingered. What was Harry trying to do? Was it grief? A twisted attempt at reconnection? Or was it, as some speculated, a last-ditch act of rebellion meant to provoke public sympathy? Palace sources believe it was all of those things. He wanted to be remembered, one insider said. But not like this. He wanted to rewrite his role in the story. But all he did was confirm that the story has moved on without him. Interestingly, the person who seemed most at peace during this storm was Prince William. According to those who spoke with him in the hours after the confrontation, he was calm, focused, and above all, determined. He's not going to let this define them, one royal source said. He's already moved past it. That's what future kings do. They absorb pain, and they carry on. But for Kate, the story was different. Later that week, during a quiet dinner with close friends, she reportedly said, "The part that hurts the most isn't the necklace. It's that what happened behind the palace walls might have remained a secret forever, if not for a single anonymous leak that detonated like a bomb across global media." Within 24 hours of the alleged incident, the world knew something was wrong. But the public didn't just react with curiosity. They erupted with outrage, disbelief, and divisive opinions that began to fracture the already strained perceptions of the royal family's most controversial son. It began innocently enough, with a headline from a mid-tier British gossip outlet, "Kensington in crisis? Security breach rumored on day of trooping the color." The piece was cautious, vague, and cited unnamed palace sources who hinted at an unauthorized individual accessing private family quarters. But behind the scenes, editors knew more than they were printing. They were waiting for a second outlet to bite, waiting for a signal that it was safe to go further. That moment came when a royal security whistleblower handed a UK tabloid a damning detail. It was Prince Harry. The tabloid didn't hesitate. That night, its front page screamed, "Prince Harry caught in private suite? Jewelry incident rocks royals." The story claimed that Harry had entered the private chambers of the Wales family without permission and was confronted by Prince William while handling Princess Kate's personal possessions. Though it carefully avoided using the word theft, it made little effort to soften the severity of the event. It described a scene of high-tension, emotionally charged confrontation and an object closely tied to the late Princess Diana. The public reaction was immediate and vicious. On X, formerly Twitter, hashtags exploded within hours. Hashtag Harry the intruder. Hashtag Kate deserves better. Hashtag Diana disrespected. Hashtag Royal Rift explodes. The comment threads were relentless. Has he lost his mind? One user wrote. First, he trashes them in interviews, now he's breaking into bedrooms? Another post, which went viral with over 300,000 likes, read, "It's no longer a feud. It's obsession. He's become dangerous." Within the first 24 hours of the story going viral, nearly every major news outlet had picked it up. BBC issued a cautious report. CNN ran a segment titled, "Prince Harry accused of breach during royal event." Fox News went further, calling it the greatest royal embarrassment since Edward VIII's abdication. By the end of the day, Piers Morgan, never one to hold back when it comes to Harry and Meghan, delivered a scathing monologue. He wants to be a victim so badly, he's now creating crises just to stay relevant, he said. Breaking into your brother's house to touch a necklace your mother once wore? That's not grief. That's obsession, plain and simple. And still, no official statement came from Buckingham Palace. The silence only fueled speculation. For royal watchers and analysts, the absence of denial was tantamount to confirmation. While the palace often refrains from engaging with tabloid chatter, the severity and specificity of the accusations made it nearly impossible for them to ignore. Yet they did. That vacuum was filled almost instantly by third-party voices. Former royal staffers gave interviews under anonymity. Paparazzi footage was examined frame by frame. Alleged audio from inside the palace, muffled and unclear, was posted online and dissected as potential proof of the confrontation. Then came the next twist. An anonymous source leaked a surveillance still. It wasn't high resolution, but the shape, the outfit, the silhouette was undeniable to royal watchers. A man in a trench coat and cap walking through a side corridor in Kensington Palace. The source claimed it was taken approximately 6:58 a.m. on the morning of Trooping the Color. Within minutes, the photo went viral. Suddenly, it wasn't just an accusation, it was a global scandal. Royal fans were quick to defend William and Kate. Fan pages on Instagram posted photos of Kate wearing the sapphire necklace in previous years, overlaying emotional captions. She wore this piece to honor Diana. And now it's been violated. On Reddit, royal conspiracy theorists debated whether this incident had been predicted in Harry's prior interviews, when he hinted that "some things left behind still call to me." Public sympathy toward Harry plummeted. A UK poll conducted just days after the story broke showed that 74% of respondents felt Harry's actions were inappropriate and disturbing. Only 9% said they sympathized with him. Among older Britons, those who remember Diana most vividly, the number dropped to just 4%. The response was not only limited to the UK. In the United States, where Harry and Meghan have maintained a larger base of support, reaction was mixed but largely critical. American talk shows discussed the incident with a blend of mockery and concern. On The View, one panelist asked, "What is Harry doing? I mean, you don't just show up at someone's house and start touching their stuff, even if it's your family." Even more damning was the silence from Meghan Markle. For over 72 hours, she made no statement, no post, no appearance. The woman who had built an empire on personal storytelling and carefully crafted media moments said nothing. The vacuum was so glaring that it generated its own wave of speculation. Some insiders claimed Meghan had no knowledge of Harry's plans. Others, more conspiratorial, suggested she had distanced herself deliberately. A whisper campaign began across media channels suggesting that Meghan had, in fact, warned Harry not to go, that he had defied her, that this moment marked a breaking point not only with the royal family, but inside his own marriage. A leaked voicemail, allegedly left by Meghan on Harry's private line, added fuel to the fire. While its authenticity remains unconfirmed, the woman's voice in the recording is heard saying, You said you wouldn't do anything dramatic. You said you'd just be there for 5 minutes. You said you'd come home. And now the world is watching again. Harry, do you understand what you've done? Whether the voicemail is real or not, the sentiment it conveyed echoed throughout public discourse. In Montecito, the Sussex home remained quiet. Paparazzi circled the area for days, hoping for a glimpse, a reaction, anything to latch onto. They got nothing. Meanwhile, back in the UK, the royal family continued as though nothing had happened. Charles resumed his engagements. William and Kate made a public appearance at a children's charity event just 2 days after the story broke. Kate, dressed simply and smiling, made no mention of the incident. But her sapphire necklace was notably absent. That omission said more than any press statement could. It was a silent rebuke, a quiet refusal to dignify the scandal. But it was also a message of grief, a signal that something had been stolen that could never be given back. In the days that followed, the calls for accountability grew louder. Members of Parliament were asked about the event. Some suggested that internal royal security needed a full audit. Others asked more pointedly, should Prince Harry be stripped of his remaining titles? A petition titled, "Remove the Duke of Sussex title from Harry Windsor," gained over 250,000 signatures in 3 days. Royal historians debated precedent. Media anchors hosted late-night specials dissecting every angle. What began as an internal family crisis had become a constitutional debate. And still, Harry said nothing. He remained silent as his image burned across tabloids, talk shows, and trending pages. No apology. No denial. No attempt at clarification. That silence, in the end, may have spoken louder than words. While the public continued to dissect every detail of the jewelry room scandal, behind closed doors, a very different storm was unfolding. One less visible, but arguably even more dangerous. The psychological unraveling of Prince Harry, according to close sources, had been slow burning for months, perhaps even years. But in the immediate wake of the Trooping the Color incident, it accelerated into something undeniable. What the world saw as trespass or desperation, some within Harry's circle began to interpret as a full-blown emotional breakdown. One of Harry's closest longtime friends, speaking on condition of anonymity, shared that he hadn't been able to reach Harry for nearly a week after the Kensington incident. Texts went unanswered. Calls rang endlessly. Eventually, a mutual contact reported that Harry had gone quiet and was reportedly staying at a private wellness retreat outside Santa Barbara. This wasn't his first retreat, but this time, it felt different. Not just a PR move. Not a post-interview cool-down, but something deeper, something raw. According to another insider from Harry's team, the days leading up to the trooping event had been marked by obsessive behavior. He was reportedly rewatching old footage of his mother, Diana, scrolling through photo archives, listening to her old audio interviews late into the night. He kept saying he was losing the last connection he had to her, the source recalled. He said everything was being erased, that the monarchy was rewriting history and cutting him out of it. That fear of erasure became a driving force. In sessions with his therapist, which he had openly discussed in previous years, Harry reportedly voiced a growing anxiety about not being real anymore, not being part of the living memory of the monarchy, not being seen as Diana's son, but as a footnote. This is what those closest to him now believe drove his decision to enter the private rooms at Kensington Palace. Not theft, not malice, but a desperate, almost childlike impulse to reclaim something physical, something he could touch and hold, something real. He thought if he could just hold it, the necklace, he could feel close to her again, one confidant said. That maybe it would quiet the noise in his head. But it didn't. It did the opposite. After the incident and the global fallout, Harry reportedly entered a state of paralysis. Not physically, but emotionally. For several days, he didn't speak to Meghan, according to palace-adjacent sources. He didn't engage with his team. Even his most loyal aides said they were locked out, left to manage the public inferno without guidance from their client. Those who have known Harry the longest were not surprised by this collapse. Many recall that even during his younger years, during his military service, his time as a working royal, or in the early days of his marriage, Harry had long wrestled with deep-seated emotional fragility. Behind the jokes, the laughter, the bravado, was a young man haunted by an unresolved grief. And more than that, a gnawing belief that he'd never truly belong. One source from his charitable foundation remembered a moment during a private donor dinner. A comment had been made by a guest, praising William's sense of duty. Harry, seemingly unfazed, smiled politely. But after the event, he reportedly confided in the guest assistant. Everyone always says that. No one ever says what I did was enough. This theme of inadequacy, of invisibility, surfaced again and again. In interviews, in his memoir, in the subtext of every public statement. He wasn't just hurt by his family, he felt abandoned by his role, rejected by the very system he was born into. The trooping event, symbolically, represented everything he had lost. And perhaps worse, everything that had gone on just fine without him. Back in California, the emotional distance between Harry and Meghan was becoming impossible to ignore. Though their relationship had long been scrutinized, insiders suggest that Meghan had been blindsided by the Kensington incident. According to someone familiar with her schedule, Meghan had warned Harry not to make any moves related to the UK event. She had reportedly told him, "If we're not invited, we don't go. No more surprises." But Harry, overwhelmed by emotion, dismissed her advice. After the scandal broke, Meghan was said to be deeply frustrated, not just by the press, but by Harry's silence and retreat. For a woman who built a brand on clarity, control, and storytelling, Harry's impulsiveness undermined everything she had tried to build. "He's off script," one of her former staffers reportedly said, and she has no way to get him back on it. Publicly, Meghan remained quiet. Privately, she was reportedly furious, not just because of the act itself, but because of what it represented: unpredictability, vulnerability, and potential danger to the empire they were still trying to maintain in America. That empire, streaming deals, book deals, philanthropic projects, was built on an image of independence, dignity, and righteous rebellion. But now, Harry's actions painted a very different picture, one of instability, obsession, and regression. By the time Harry re-emerged from his self-imposed isolation, the damage was done. The world had moved on. The polls were in. The palace had already begun its internal restructuring to prevent another breach. And Kate, the unintentional center of the drama, had resumed public duties with grace. Harry, by contrast, looked deflated, hollow. He was spotted walking alone in Montecito, head down, avoiding cameras. No entourage. No smile. No Meghan. Back inside the Sussex household, things were no better. Friends reported that the couple had begun sleeping in separate rooms. Conversations had turned into confrontations. Meghan, reportedly, had demanded answers Harry couldn't provide. "You put your pain above everything," she allegedly told him. "Even us. Even the kids." For a man who once proudly declared he had broken free from the cage of royal control, Harry now seemed trapped in a different one of his own making. A psychological prison built from decades of trauma, unprocessed grief, and a hunger to matter in a world that had moved forward without him. A royal biographer who had long studied the brothers made a sobering observation. William accepted his fate, burdens and all. Harry never did. He wanted his mother's legacy without the institution that created it. But in trying to reclaim her memory, he ended up dishonoring it. Even within the inner circles of royal staff, some expressed pity, not rage, not judgment, but sorrow. He was the boy who walked behind his mother's coffin, one aide said. And maybe, in some way, he never stopped walking. In the weeks following the scandal, Harry began attending therapy more frequently. There was talk of a memoir addendum, a possible sit-down with a new therapist-hosted podcast. But for the first time, it seemed that even Harry wasn't sure what story he wanted to tell anymore. Because no story, no matter how honest, raw, or emotionally compelling, could undo what had happened in that room at Kensington. As the public focused on Prince Harry's psychological collapse and his ongoing silence in the media, inside the royal family, a more consequential shift was underway, one not broadcast to the world, but already reshaping the monarchy from the inside. The events of Trooping the Colour 2025 had triggered not only emotional fallout, but a stark, cold reevaluation of loyalty, access, and succession. Within the gilded halls of Buckingham Palace and the private corridors of Kensington, conversations began to pivot from damage control to institutional survival. The monarchy, for all its traditions and pageantry, is a system. And systems, when destabilized from within, instinctively protect their core. That's what King Charles was now being forced to do. The king, still recovering from a recent medical intervention and visibly thinner in recent public appearances, was not initially keen to act harshly against his son. Sources close to the crown confirmed that Charles had spent the days following the trooping incident consulting with longtime advisors, including his most trusted private secretary and the Lord Chamberlain. The question at the heart of every conversation was no longer, did he do it? But, what do we do now? Until this moment, Charles had preserved a delicate balancing act between his two sons. Despite the bitterness of Megxit, the Oprah fallout, and Harry's bombshell memoirs, the king had reportedly clung to the hope that some form of reconciliation, however symbolic, was possible. His motivation wasn't just personal. It was also strategic. For Charles, maintaining the image of a united, modern monarchy was essential to securing the crown's relevance. But the breach at Kensington had changed the equation. This wasn't just another media scandal. This was personal. This was security-related. This had shaken the future queen, triggered a protocol review, and led to mass outrage from both the public and Parliament. For William, there was no hesitation. According to several royal insiders, he was unequivocal. There's no space for him anymore, not in the family, and not in the system. That sentiment wasn't just emotional. It was structural. In the days following the incident, William held a series of closed-door meetings with senior members of the royal household. On the agenda, reassessing the lines of access, refining event guest lists, updating emergency protocols, and discussing the long-term implications of Harry's destabilizing presence. But perhaps the most important of those meetings involved only two people, William and the king. Held in private at Sandringham, the conversation was said to be the most candid and decisive exchange the two men had shared in years. According to leaks from a trusted source, William laid out 3 points. First, that Harry had violated not only physical space, but emotional trust, specifically that of Catherine and their children. Second, that continuing to entertain the idea of public reconciliation would only embolden more reckless behavior. Third, that as future king, William needed clarity. Either Harry was in or he was out, not somewhere in between. Charles, faced with the clarity of his heir, didn't resist. The king reportedly nodded and said quietly, "It's time to let go." It was not a cruel dismissal, but a resigned acceptance of the truth. With that, the process of removing Harry from all remaining royal privileges, informal and symbolic, was quietly set in motion. Internally, it began with updated security briefings. All previously allowed courtesy access that extended to the Sussexes during visits to the UK was revoked. Staff were instructed to treat Harry and Meghan as external guests. No exceptions. No shortcuts. Next came changes to royal event planning. Harry and Meghan were formally removed from potential guest lists for all public-facing family engagements for the next 2 years, including state banquets, Commonwealth observances, and royal baptisms. Finally, there was discussion, still ongoing, about formally stripping the Duke and Duchess of Sussex of their titles. A measure not easily taken, and one fraught with constitutional hurdles, but now viewed by many within the palace as inevitable. One senior advisor reportedly remarked, "The institution must outlive the individuals." That's how it's always been. That's how it must continue. This movement was not just limited to William and Charles. Other senior royals quietly began closing ranks. Princess Anne, long known for her no-nonsense demeanor, reportedly told aides, "There's no trust left." That's the truth. You can't function without it. The Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh, Edward and Sophie, who had previously tried to serve as intermediaries during family tensions, reportedly pulled back all communication with the Sussexes after the incident. The word from Sophie was brief but pointed, "Enough." Even Beatrice and Eugenie, two royals often sympathetic to Harry's struggle, appeared to have taken a step back. One courtier noted that both had declined recent video calls from Harry, choosing instead to stay neutral. But perhaps the most telling reaction came from Kate herself. In the days following the breach, she returned to royal duties with a deliberate air of composure. At a children's hospital visit, she was warm, engaged, and seemingly unaffected. But a small moment revealed more than any statement might have. While speaking to a child about their favorite color, the child pointed to a sapphire pendant Kate wore on a chain. She smiled gently and said, "Blue is a color you wear when you want to feel strong." Observers quickly noted that it was not Diana's sapphire necklace, but a different piece entirely. Later, during a private event with mental health advocates, Kate was overheard saying to a staffer, "Some traumas don't have closure, but they do have boundaries." It was a quiet declaration, but one that resonated across the entire institution. And as these boundaries were drawn, the structure of the monarchy began to harden. What had once been flexible and hopeful, a space for modern reconciliation and evolving roles, had crystallized into something more traditional, more guarded. Harry, from that point on, was no longer treated as an estranged son trying to return. He was now viewed as an external force with the potential to disrupt. This reframing extended beyond internal measures. In diplomatic conversations with other Commonwealth nations, royal envoys were instructed to emphasize the continuity of the core family. A subtle way of reinforcing that Harry and Meghan were no longer part of that narrative. Behind the scenes, this realignment was managed with care. Public statements remained vague. No formal pronouncements were made. But the message was clear. The House of Windsor had drawn its line. A former palace press officer put it bluntly, "They're freezing him out." That's the strategy. Not dramatic, not hostile, just cold enough to make it permanent. And it was working. Media interest began to shift. Analysts stopped referring to Harry and Meghan as senior royals. Headlines began to use phrases like former working royals and California-based couple. Even foreign media outlets adopted the new terminology. Inside the palace, the effect was one of calm, not celebration, not vindication, just calm. The chaos was over. The system had adapted. But for Harry, that adaptation came at a cost no title or inheritance could match. By the end of June 2025, the emotional shock from Prince Harry's actions during Trooping the Colour had gradually given way to a colder, more calculated mindset within the royal institution. Behind closed doors, a future was being shaped, one built not only around succession and ceremonial duty, but around damage control, public reassurance, and legacy preservation. This wasn't just about a single breach. It was about the monarchy's long-term stability, about protecting the perception that, no matter the crisis, the system would endure. And it began with tangible changes, both in protocol and in narrative. The first and most immediate adjustment came in the form of a total security overhaul. The events of June 15th had exposed a dangerous loophole, one that, by sheer luck, hadn't ended in disaster. In the week following the incident, Charles approved an unprecedented audit of all-access credentials across royal estates. From Windsor to Sandringham, from Clarence House to Balmoral, every ID pass was reviewed. Dozens were deactivated. Outdated entry codes were purged. Biometric authentication systems were fast-tracked for all working residences. Kensington Palace, in particular, underwent sweeping changes. The side corridor used by Harry was closed permanently. Steel-reinforced doors were installed at every entry point to the residential wings. Private rooms, including those of the Wales family, were outfitted with silent alarms and facial recognition locks. Access to those areas would now require dual authorization, both from internal staff and royal protection units. One insider described the mood as fortress mentality, not born of paranoia, but of painful realism. What happened that morning proved anyone, even someone once loved and trusted, can become a security risk, the officials said. We don't have the luxury of sentiment anymore. But while locks and cameras could address the physical threat, there remained the far more difficult task of managing public perception. In the wake of the scandal, public confidence in the monarchy took a measurable hit. According to a YouGov poll conducted days after the incident, 58% of respondents said they were disturbed by the idea that even close family members could pose a threat to royal safety. A smaller but significant percentage, around 22%, questioned whether the monarchy's internal divisions had reached an irreparable point. The palace understood this perception had to be corrected, not through press conferences, but through symbolism, appearances, and carefully coordinated events. Thus, the royal machine moved into action. Prince William and Princess Kate were immediately placed at the forefront of public engagements. They appeared at hospitals, schools, and charity events with a steady frequency, often accompanied by their children. The message was subtle but effective. Stability, unity, continuity. Kate, in particular, became a focal point. Her calm presence and graceful demeanor throughout the ordeal had won public admiration. She was viewed not only as a victim of the breach, but as a dignified survivor of it. Royal aides began referring to her as the steady hand, a moniker that quietly caught on in both media and public circles. Her speeches became slightly more personal. During a visit to a women's shelter, she addressed themes of trust and personal boundaries. At another engagement, she spoke about healing, saying, "The path forward is sometimes unclear, but what matters most is who walks it with you." The subtext was unmistakable. Meanwhile, King Charles, despite his ailing health, resumed more public engagements than originally planned. Though clearly fatigued at times, he made deliberate appearances at Commonwealth briefings and ceremonial events. His intent was clear: to show that the crown had not been destabilized. But behind the optics, deeper conversations were unfolding, particularly about titles, succession roles, and legal precedent. A private meeting was held between the king's advisors and constitutional experts. On the table was a single question: what legal mechanism, if any, could permanently remove the Duke and Duchess of Sussex titles? The issue was thorny. Royal titles are not easily revoked, especially once granted by letters patent. Any action to remove them would require either a direct petition to the monarch or a rare intervention via Parliament. While both were theoretically possible, the palace knew the optics would be delicate. Stripping titles would signal total exile. It would turn private fallout into official banishment. For now, the consensus was to let time do the work. "We don't need to take anything away," one advisor reportedly said. "We just need to make it irrelevant." And in many ways, they already had. Harry and Meghan's exclusion from the royal narrative was becoming increasingly